Hey guys, it's me. I. I have an IQ of 3, but leave it to me. Anyways, what if one day you suddenly wake up and realized you just got isekai'd in the game you were grinding? Yes, one of the typical isekai trope. But what's that? You're the villain. Oh ho ho. The first one I knew was Overlord, but I think it's getting overused now too. You became a girl. Okay. The game is not for kids. Oh, so it's A, and your ending as well. At least there is no amputee tag? But every tag is there. Domination loss, their tag, slave, group, public use, muscle, soul female, hairy, sweating, collar. In the start of this story, our protagonist is monologuing, saying that inside every game, the world is irrational. It delivers a thrill for the player's enjoyment. But countless people die far too easily. It is said that from a distance, people's lives seem like a comedy. But up close, they're a tragedy. We then see him in a full-shot view, and see that he has lost his legs. We then realized he was a former soldier who has lost his legs in a battle and is now disabled. He tripped on his chair, but thankfully fell down in his bed. He then says that ever since he became disabled, he became a wreck, got addicted to alcohol and cigarettes. He then thinks about how his life has become. It's not his fault that he became a cripple, but recognizes that what he has become right now is his fault. He then curses himself as he falls asleep. He then someone hears shouting. He opens his eyes as he questions the guy making a racket in the morning. He then wakes up, but says his head hurts and assumes he has a hangover. Then suddenly froze. He got surprised his hair became longer and turned brown. Then shouts loudly, which made the guy outside stiffen. He then questions what's going on. He questions why everything from his head to his voice is different. Then looks down and see that his balls went up his chest. Then realizes that he became a she. Big. Then looks further down and sees that she has 2 legs. She questions if this is a dream. Then touches herself and says that the sensations feels too real. She then got startled by the man shouting, calling out Halshul and asking if she's awake. She then questions herself if Halshul is her name. She confirms that she's awake and asks a moment since she just had woken up. The guy leaves, then assumes that he's probably her subordinate. She calms herself down, then thinks for a moment. She observes her surroundings. Basing on the architectural style, she's either in Mongolia or somewhere close to Central Asia. But all the object and furnitures though seems antiquated, which she never seen even when she got deployed to those areas. Then suddenly, a thought came to her mind and thinks that, did she maybe got reincarnated in another world? She again looks below. At her legs. She clenches her hand. Then slowly puts her feet down the floor. And finally stands up. She giggles. And became happy because she finally has 2 legs again. Chapter 2. After a while she finally put on some. Well, the average female armor that can take a ton of damage. She then thinks that, even now that she got reincarnated, she still ended up in a military-like occupation. She sighs and thinks that fate really is cruel. She then worries because she doesn't know what the original owner of the body is like. So now she should mind her speech and behavior so there won't be any problems. She calls for the person waiting outside to come in. As the person comes in, she noticed something and became terrified as she sees that the man is very tall and menacing. She sweats and got frightened because he looks like someone who could eat her. Even when she was in the military, she's never seen a guy who looked as ferocious as him. The guy then took a knee, then bows down, then got relieved because her assumption is right that she's in charge. She asks him why he came here this morning. The man apologizes and reasons that she hasn't given orders regarding the prisoners they captured yesterday. She asks about the prisoners. He tells her that there are 20 young men and 32 women. And the younger women, as per her previous orders, were made to serve the warriors. But the women are safe right now because the warriors didn't want girls that couldn't ride horses. What is standard? Then asks if they should sell them all as slaves. She freezes for a moment. Then got terrified about the word serving warriors and the slaves. She realizes that they are the bad guys and she is the leader of it. She's scared but still thinks of a way to not let it happen. She questions if it's really necessary to sell them. The guy hesitates for a moment, then confirms it. She then asks again, cutely this time. But what came out is a terrifying aura asking if he really thinks it's necessary. The man got scared seeing her and immediately bows down, telling her there's no need to sell them. She became happy, then asks his subordinate to guide and send those prisoners back to their families then, since we have no use for them, which made the man more scared. The man promised to follow her orders, then tells her that he would relay her order to the warriors. She asks if there's anything else he has to say. He tells her that they are preparing to return, so the attendants will soon come to clean her yurt. If anyone wondering what a yurt is, it's basically a sturdy tent that's used in Central Asia and particularly Mongolia. She then exhales as she sits down on her bed. Thankfully, she managed to get through it, but she's still the leader of these bad guys. She thinks about her next actions and questions herself on how to fix this. Then suddenly, she hears something. She questions the people screaming outside all of a sudden. Then freezes. She ran outside. Opens the tent. Then what she saw are things I cannot really show here, but there's a lot of blood and people screaming, begging to be spared. The sudden screams and suffocating smell of blood. Not only did her legs came back, she also came back to hell. Chapter 3. We then see an aerial view of the whole thing. She then narrates that seeing someone die isn't really new to her. She was once a soldier after all. But maybe because she haven't seen and smelled that metallic scent of blood for a long time. Or maybe because she's been too caught up in the battlefield that she really didn't took it in properly. Right now, she's getting nauseated looking at everything, but forces herself to not throw up because they definitely know that she's an imposter. Somebody then called out to her. A man asking if she's all right. She tells him she's fine, then asks what exactly is going on here. He just replies that they're dealing with the prisoners as she ordered. She questions what her order was. And questioned that didn't she told Captain Johan that they'd be sent to their families? She takes a moment. Then realizes they probably already took the life of all their families, and when she ordered that, they took it as they should also take their life to meet their families in the other side. She's frustrated with their twisted logic, but calms herself down because right now, she'll become suspicious if she get mad. She tells the guy that she actually did ordered Captain Johan to do that, and reasons that she must have been half asleep ordering it. The man laughs and reasons that she drunk 5 bottles of that strong alcohol last night. While the guy is still laughing that their captain can actually be inattentive at times, we see that she's still frustrated about the whole thing. After a while, she came back out again and see that they cleaned up all the bodies quickly. After the attendant gave the bottle to her, she asks her Lady Ishanger if there's anything else she needs. She tells her none. Then finally knows her full name, Ishanger Helschel, which is hard to pronounce. Then she finally remembers something. The great warrior Johan and her Sella the Mad. They were all the bosses in the game she played called War of Remnant, a strategic RPG adult game that was somewhat popular. And that explains her unrealistic clothes. But now that she knows where she's reincarnated at, she says she spent around 200 hours playing it. The story is roughly entering the Remnant Academy, which trains the heroes. And the protagonist gets stronger and saves the world. A typical story trope. But what it boasted about is an excellent gameplay, which is a high degree of freedom. And high quality. I will censor what she's imagining, but basically, it has penetration. Then realizes something bad. She's a female character. She's pretty much screwed, and terrifyingly might be physically too. Chapter 4. They started to return back to their tribe. And while riding a horse, she's recalling what her role was. Ishanger Helschel, alias Hercella the Mad. Okay, I'm going to call her Hercella now because the name Helschel is a foreign and unique name. It feels like a typo every time I write it in my script. Alright, back to the story. She's the boss of the 3rd chapter in the game. She leads the nomadic tribe to invade the empire. And she is the toughest boss in the game. And when she played it herself, she spent almost the entire day just to beat her and costed her a broken keyboard in the process. She also has a backstory of her losing her mother at a young age. She's pretty much a girl with mommy issues. But the most important point is that no matter what path she takes, she has no future. If she loses to the protagonist, the tags I stated at the beginning would happen to her forever. And if she wins against the protagonist, she'd fall to the final boss and would still be, she'd become a baby soldier-making machine. Ursula is terrified and by all means should divert the original story. The captain then calls for her attention, then informs her that they're about to reach Ordos. She needs to come up with a plan before arriving at Ordos on how to escape her predicament and live peacefully on her own. Then sees something. They are already nearing the capital of the Ishanger tribe called Ordos. One of the guards spotted something. Dust of smoke in the distance. And see the flag that indicates the Black Wolf insignia. The guard ordered the others to open the gates immediately and shouts that Lady Ishanger Ursula has returned. The gates open and orders everyone to bow their heads to show their respects to Lady Ishanger Ursula. She then thinks about the perks she has being a chieftain's daughter and how she's getting special treatment. Ursula observes the buildings and infrastructures around and thinks that it's straight out of the Middle Ages, and also thinks that it's one of those typical evil tribe village that would be destroyed in the end. Captain Johann then asks Ursula if she's going to see Lord Sirkin immediately. She asks if there's any problem with that. Johann got terrified at her gaze and immediately says no, and says that if it's Lady Ursula, Lord Sirkin won't mind. And she also thinks that he'd better not, and see that she's getting nervous about it. A guard then called for Lord Sirkin and informs the Lord that Lady Ishanger Ursula has returned and wants to see him. He puts down the cup, then menacingly says her daughter's name. And that is the end of chapter 4. The story is just starting, so subscribe to get notified when the next chapters come out. Stay safe, everyone. Be careful to not get transported as an anime girl in an adult game. Bye bye.